the past week or two, I have spoken about President Trump and his personal business interests that seem to be dictating his behavior and his choices and his actions as US president, right? He is personally invested in Pakistan and so much more. Today, let us take a look at another leader and his and what could be the root cause of his actions. And the leader I'm talking about is Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu. So, Mr. Netanyahu has been facing a variety of political challenges. And the question is, could those political challenges that Mr. Netanyahu is facing as of today, could those challenges be a critical factor in his actions, in his decisions, and in the ongoing eventual direction that this war will take, the Israel Iran war, right? So, Mr. Netanyahu, he is facing corruption troubles. This began in December 2016 when Israeli police launched investigations into allegations of fraud and breach of trust and bribery. And the investigations initially focused on two cases. In August 2017, Israeli police officially confirmed that Mr. Netanyahu was suspected of crimes involving fraud, breach of trust, and bribes. Um, in February 2018, Israeli police recommended that Mr. Netanyahu be charged with corruption. They said that there is sufficient evidence that existed to indict Mr. Netanyahu on charges of bribery and fraud and breach of trust. This is all out in the public domain. Okay, you can look it up. So this was a significant escalation in the legal proceedings against Israel's longest serving prime minister. Right. So let's take a look at. Take a look at these core cases. This is the timeline of what I just mentioned. What are the core cases? There are three core cases. Okay, three distinct cases which were filed, I think, in 2019. There is case 1000, which is called the gifts affair. So Mr. Netanyahu and his wife have been accused of receiving lavish gifts, worth approximately between 192 to 280 thousand US dollars from various wealthy businessmen, including a Hollywood producer, including the Australian businessman billionaire James Packer, son of Kerry Packer. The gifts included allegedly cigars and champagne and jewelry, expensive accommodations in exchange for political favors, such as tax breaks and business contracts. Then there is case 2000, which is a media deal. This case involves allegations that Mr. Netanyahu attempted to negotiate a quid pro quo arrangement with the publisher of the Yediot Aronot newspaper. And Mr. Netanyahu, according to the allegations, allegedly offered to help improve the newspaper's circulation and to advance legislation to weaken the newspaper's rival in exchange for more favorable coverage of Mr. Netanyahu. Then there is case 4000, the Bezek case, which involves allegations that Mr. Netanyahu granted regulatory favors worth about $500 million to the Bezek telecommunications company. And in return, prosecutors allege that he sought positive media coverage for himself and his wife on the news website that is controlled by this company. So these are the allegations, pretty serious allegations, and according to the Israeli police, there is evidence that supports these allegations, which is why the cases have been filed. So in November 21, 2019. Mr. Netanyahu was indicted, which made him the first sitting Israeli prime minister to face criminal charges. Mr. Netanyahu was charged with bribery in case 4000, which we just mentioned, and he was charged with fraud and breach of trust in all three cases. This trial began on May 24, 2020, in Jerusalem District Court. Mr. Netanyahu initially sought immunity from prosecution, but he then withdrew this immunity request on January 28, 2020, which allowed the charges to proceed. And the trial has faced numerous delays, and the prosecution rested its case in July 2024. It's about less than a year ago. And in December 2024, Mr. Netanyahu became the first sitting Israeli prime minister to testify in court as a criminal defendant. He took the stand to defend himself against the corruption allegations. And if he is convicted, in the case that he is convicted, he faces up to 10 years in prison for bribery charges, and up to 3 years for fraud and breach of trust. Now, what's been the political impact of all of this on Mr. Netanyahu's political career and his public perception? So there have been electoral consequences. Um, the corruption charges have significantly impacted Mr. Netanyahu's political standing, and it has also impacted Israeli politics more broadly. So the 2019-2020 elections were regarded as a referendum on Mr. Netanyahu's corruption charges. And this divided the political system, it divided the media, and it divided the Israeli public into pro-Netanyahu and anti-Netanyahu camps. Polarization. So this polarization led to 4 snap elections in under 4 years. Tremendous political instability in Israel as Mr. Netanyahu struggled to form stable governing coalitions. But despite these charges, Mr. Netanyahu managed to maintain his political position through strategic coalition building. And after the 2022 elections, he successfully formed what some media persons have described as the most right-wing government in Israel's history, with the support of what they call far-right parties. Now, what about the public opinion that Mr. Netanyahu? So, public opinion about Mr. Netanyahu's guilt or not being guilty has remained divided, but it's very concerning for the prime minister. So in 2017, a survey found that 54% of Israelis did not believe that Mr. Netanyahu was entirely innocent of the corruption allegations. And only 34% of Israelis believed his claims of innocence. And 63% of Israelis who were polled believed that he should resign if he was charged by the Attorney General. But however, Mr. Netanyahu's approval ratings have shown some resilience despite all these troubles. Uh, Before the allegations, about 52% of Israelis approved of his job performance, which was one of his higher ratings in recent tenure. And his lowest approval rating was in 2035. So it was 35% in 2012, when he also faced allegations of corruption. Now, there is more. There's a judicial reform controversy. So these corruption charges that Mr. Netanyahu faces, they directly influenced his controversial judicial reform agenda, which began in 2023. So his government attempted to, what a lot of the media says, they attempted to weaken the judiciary. Okay, that's what a lot of people claim. And this was viewed by a lot of people as motivated by Mr. Netanyahu's desire to escape legal consequences. So he attempted to uh, overhaul the judiciary, and this sparked massive protests in Israel, and it created the worst domestic crisis in the history of Israel. And this brought together a very broad opposition movement. It galvanized a broad coalition against Mr. Netanyahu. Now, moving forward, in October 2023, on October 7, 2023, there was a devastating terrorist attack by the terrorist organization Hamas on Israel, right? And this was clearly a monumental security failure and intelligence failure by Israel. And this initially dealt a severe blow to the standing of Mr. Netanyahu. It dealt a severe blow to his political standing. He appeared shell-shocked. He appeared diminished by this surprise attack, which created a national emergency, and this caused his public support to drop very significantly, very sharply. It plummeted. And many Israelis blamed Mr. Netanyahu for the security failures, the intelligence failures, etc., that allowed this attack to actually occur. And there was an independent commission of inquiry, and this commission found that Mr. Netanyahu had consistently undermined the government's national security decision-making process, And it said that Mr. Netanyahu had exhibited arrogance and inherent blindness that left Israel unprepared for this devastating terrorist attack by Hamas. And this commission accused Mr. Netanyahu of strengthening Hamas by facilitating fund transfers while avoiding any offensive initiatives against Hamas. So, bad time for Mr. Netanyahu. But despite this initial blame that he took for October 7, Mr. Netanyahu demonstrated significant political resilience, remarkable political resilience. By May 2024, uh, it looks like he had regained favor with Israeli voters. He had overtaken his main rival, Benny Gantz, for the first time since October 7, right? And this was a significant shift from December 2023, where Mr. Gantz held a commanding 45% to 27% lead over Mr. Netanyahu. So, what contributed to Mr. Netanyahu's recovery? Well, several factors contributed. First of all, there was a passage of time which allowed the focus to shift from the failures of October 7 to the ongoing security challenges. Mr. Netanyahu's political coalition and operation continued attacking opponents, and then this conflict, that the Gaza conflict, it provided opportunities to demonstrate leadership. So this ongoing war in Gaza, it diverted public attention from the corruption trial, which was repeatedly delayed because of this ongoing conflict. Now the question is this: is the Iran conflict political salvation potentially for Mr. Netanyahu? Uh, so the escalation with Iran has definitely provided Mr. Netanyahu with a lot of political breathing room. So, just one day before launching Operation Rising Lion against Iran, Mr. Netanyahu narrowly survived a confidence vote, a no confidence vote in the Israeli parliament, which could have collapsed his government. Uh, and the operation against Iran immediately unified Israeli politics behind Mr. Netanyahu. Just one day after he narrowly survived this confidence motion in parliament. So what's been the outcome thus far of the attack on Iran? So there's been unprecedented national unity that's come out of this. The attack on Iran has achieved what Mr. Netanyahu's previous military actions could not achieve. Now there is broad national consensus across the political spectrum. Even former rivals of Mr. Netanyahu, like Mr. Lieberman, Avigdor Lieberman, and Benny Gantz, even these former rivals have publicly supported the strikes against Iran. So Mr. Gantz has said that there is no, when it comes to Iran, on the Iranian issue, there is no right, there is no left, there is only right or wrong, and we are right. So it's unified the political spectrum. And about 83% of Jewish Israelis support Mr. Netanyahu's decision to attack Iran. So this is a significant shift, dramatic shift from his unpopularity during the Gaza war, where most people, or at least many people, viewed his actions as being politically motivated. But the attack on Iran by Israel has been perceived as something that has addressed a genuine existential threat for Israel rather than serving some kind of narrow political purpose for Mr. Netanyahu. And that's why there is this tremendous support that Mr. Netanyahu is currently enjoying. So the corruption trial has been naturally overshadowed by this. This conflict against Iran has pushed the corruption trial out of the headlines. His testimony was supposed to dominate news coverage, obviously, but it has been delayed. It has been relegated to secondary importance. And there were weekly protests that had been plaguing his government. These have been suspended because of security directives in Israel, which have prohibited large gatherings. And yeah, this could potentially be Mr. Netanyahu's Churchill moment. And this attack on Iran may have transformed his political position overnight. So the narrative is that Iran is the root of all anti-Israeli sentiment. And this narrative has taken hold in Israeli politics. And this has provided Mr. Netanyahu with a unifying external threat to the nation. So the question now is, what kind of victory over Iran does Mr. Netanyahu need to make these allegations and charges of corruptions, etc., to make these things irrelevant? There's a certain scale of success that is required. So, for Mr. Netanyahu to completely potentially neutralize these corruption charges through military success, he will have to achieve multiple unprecedented outcomes that will, if he achieves that, it will fundamentally transform his legacy and his political position. So, what are these things? First of all, Israel will have to eliminate entirely, completely, fundamentally, permanently eliminate Iran's nuclear program. So, Mr. Netanyahu has said that Israel is very close to achieving its goals of eliminating Iran's nuclear program and Iran's ballistic missile threats. So he claims that more than half of Iran's ballistic missile launchers have been destroyed, and that significant damage has been inflicted on Iran's nuclear program. However, if you do a reality check, it becomes clear that the complete elimination of Iran's nuclear capabilities would actually require sustained, comprehensive action that goes beyond the scope of the current operations. So it is actually hard to believe that Israel is very close to eliminating Iran's nuclear program. So this is something that he has not been able to achieve thus far, clearly. Then there is more. There's got So for this to continue, there needs to be regional transformation. Um, and Mr. Netanyahu has claimed that success against Iran will ultimately lead to an expansion of the Abraham Accords, which would potentially bring in more Arab nations into normalization agreements with Israel. This would be a dramatic regional realignment, which will definitely overshadow the domestic legal proceedings against Mr. Netanyahu. It would position Mr. Netanyahu as a transformative leader who reshaped Middle Eastern geopolitics. So he needs this regional transformation to happen. Then he needs sustained public support. He needs electoral victories. Um, in order to permanently escape the political impact of the corruption charges, Mr. Netanyahu will need to maintain the current high levels of public support through to the next elections and beyond that. So this would require continued military success without the conflict devolving into a costly war of attrition, which could very quickly erode public support. And then the most direct path to making the corruption charges irrelevant would involve fundamental changes to the Israeli legal system and so on. But that's not a geopolitical matter, so we don't need to look into that. So essentially, he needs regional transformation. He needs the denuclearization of Iran, the de-ballistic missileification of Iran, and sustained public support that can only come through continuing military success and victories. So the question is Mr. Netanyahu's future linked to the outcome of the war with Iran, against Iran? And does Mr. Trump have something to do with this? I mean, Mr. Trump has been one US leader who has very quickly acquiesced to what Israel has needed to be done. I mean, you had Trump 1, in which nothing happened. There was no new war, right? Which was between 2016 and 2020. Then you had the Biden administration, during whose tenure you had the Ukraine war, which erupted, but there was no support for any military action in the Middle East region. But now, just a few months after Mr. Trump comes to power for the second time, he has gone out of his way to support this Israeli military operation against Iran by bombing 3 nuclear facilities. So is it possible that Mr. Netanyahu's political future is linked to the outcome of the Iran war? The Iran conflict has provided Mr. Netanyahu with a significant significant political breathing room. It has restored much of his public standing, political standing, but the long term impact remains uncertain. Um, in order to completely neutralize the effect of the corruption charges, Mr. Netanyahu will require sustained military success, significant military success, essentially uh, a, f- a complete victory over Iran, right? And possibly regime change in Iran. So he will need the denuclearization of Iran. He will need a military defeat of Iran, and he will need a regime change in Iran. Beyond that, he will need fundamental regional transformation, and also maybe constitutional changes or a legal resolution of the changes. So this current war, the war that has been launched on Iran, it essentially represents Mr. Netanyahu's best opportunity in many years to reshape his destiny and to cement his legacy. The question is whether this political revival of Mr. Netanyahu can survive beyond this immediate crisis. And it all depends on the actions of Mr. Trump. So it is most likely that even though Mr. Trump has bombed the three Iranian nuclear sites in just a couple of days ago, it's most likely that that has not achieved the complete denuclearization of Iran. It is very likely that Iran's nuclear program will continue. There's also a likelihood that they may be tempted to do a nuclear test. So Mr. Netanyahu will not be satisfied with what Mr. Trump has done thus far. He probably will need more